This podcast episode is made possible by wowdigital.com, your trusted partner for nonprofit and charity website and design. How can you truly wake up your brand and propel your organization to new heights? Today, we're diving deep into the thrilling world of nonprofit marketing with a true expert. Get ready to uncover the powerful secrets of storytelling, behavioral psychology, and action design principles that will captivate your audience and drive real results. This episode is jam-packed with game-changing insights. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. I'm your host, David Paseric. Today, we're exploring the vibrant world of nonprofit marketing and branding with Howard Levy. Howard is a nonprofit marketing expert who's helped hundreds of organizations revitalize their brands and achieve greater success. He founded one of the first marketing agencies focused on nonprofits 30 years ago. As president of Rooster Group, he's partnered with various organizations to improve their marketing and raise millions of dollars for their causes. He specializes in using behavioral psychology, storytelling, and action design to motivate donations and engagement. Howard, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, David. Wonderful to be here and glad to be sharing insights with your audience.
So, Red Rooster, you make hot sauce.
Or, we get confused with a restaurant in New York. Also, we're based in New York. So we got their calls before they had phone lines in, but we were around for a while. Wake up your brand. That was the idea behind the name. It's fantastic that so many people want to make an impact in this world, but it also makes it challenging for organizations to stand out, capture people's attention, capture donors, and anyone else they want to engage in their mission. So that's why we came along and said, we need to do something to help these organizations who are really kind of the unsung heroes that don't get the attention that they deserve and really need to clarify their voice, get their message out, and engage people. And that's why we started Red Rooster Group.
It's amazing. And it's really hard to stand out from the crowd, right? We don't want to think of other nonprofits as competition because they're not, right? Like we're all here to do good, to improve humanity, to help feed starving children or whatever it happens to be that's at the core of why you started the organization. But really, there's only so many dollars to go around, right? So
yeah, there's a kind of a frenemies situation in many cases. The pool does get, has expanded over the years in terms of the amount of money that nonprofits have raised. But on the other hand, actually, there's fewer people who are donating. So more money is coming from the top, and the landscape is shifting in that way to get attention from larger donors rather than kind of the masses of people. Although still, the top organizations still raising tons of money from the masses. But for most of the organizations, which I suppose your clients are as well, kind of small and medium-sized organizations that really need the firepower that we're providing in terms of sharpening their brand and getting attention and getting the messages out there.
And I think we kind of alluded to this a little bit as we were just talking for the couple of moments here. But what are reasons that nonprofits would want to revitalize their brand?
Yeah. So, you were talking about an organization that had been around a while, and we work with organizations that come to us say, we were founded with a specific mission, and over the decades, things have changed. We're no longer working with just children. We're working with the families or adults. So the population that has served has changed. Maybe the geography has changed. It's expanded, to another area. Potentially services have changed and now taking on a whole different lines of work. One organization is expanding internationally. Some organizations trying to expand nationally. New leadership wants to take in new directions, has new idea for a vision of how they could accomplish the mission or solve the problems in new ways. So, we've encountered lots of different reasons that nonprofits want to engage an agency to revitalize their brand.
I mean, I've certainly experienced some of the challenges in terms of web projects and stuff, because that's primarily what we do at our agency. From your perspective, what are challenges that nonprofits typically kind of face when they're going through a brand revitalization or even just talking about potential of doing that?
Yeah, it's a good question because this industry is not necessarily trained for that. I think if you work in the business sector, or at least a large company, and you're a VP of marketing, you probably had an MBA, you probably have gone through marketing steps. So you've had some trainings on rebranding or other marketing types of initiatives. That's getting to be a little more so true these days with nonprofits, but still for many organizations, they don't have that experience in-house and they don't know what to do. So I think educating clients on how to go about the process and avoiding the pitfalls, particularly as nonprofits, unlike some businesses, are consensus driven. And so it's hard to get leadership to acclimate around a particular decision. And, there's a lot of like, hey, let's ask everyone what they think, which is good to get feedback, but not necessarily be able to get everyone on the same page all the time, especially about the larger brand initiatives, like the name of an organization, for example. Not everyone is going to agree. But someone has to make a decision. You look at the data, get field research, get some response, and know that you're making the right decision, but then actually to make a decision and move forward.
Yeah, I think it's important as an organization, especially one that's serving the public, that you wouldn't want to go and make a drastic change to your name, and then there's maybe a disconnect with what people know about you or your new organization. Where's the legacy, the history, all that type of stuff, to be able to know that they're actually trying to connect with the same organization, even though you might have changed your name. And it's important to take a pulse and really understand, is it really the name that's the problem? Is it the logo? Is it the branding? Like when I talk about branding with our clients, we don't talk about the logo. I mean, the logo is certainly part of it, but there's a lot more to it, right? There's the colors that you've got, there's the tone and style of your messaging, there's your overall, I guess, mood board type of stuff, like the style of your photography, the videos, there's more to it than just, all right, here's my logo, right?
Yeah, that's right. The logo is it's a good, entry point, because it's, in some way it encapsulates a lot of different things, all those things, the tone, the personality, the colors. If there's an icon that represents something, it's giving a pictorial symbol of what the organization's all about. But the larger picture is really the brand strategy. Who are we and where do we want to go? So, is our mission clear? You kind of start there, because as we just alluded to in the question you asked, why do organizations, start this process? Really, the mission is unclear. The population served is different, services are different, the expansion, all those kinds of things are the strategic issues. And behind that question is like, how do we remain intact? How do we get all of our people on board with rowing this whole ship in the same direction? And how do we not lose our donors? And in fact, how do we create a larger tent and opening, to engage donors through that? So the strategic question, kind of starts there. What's our mission and what's our vision for the world? And how do donors and others see that? Is it inspirational enough? Is it really addressing the problem? Does it paint a picture of the world that we'd like to be in? And then how do we tell that story? So we had the message, that's reflected in the name, and then that's reflected in the logo, and that's reflected in all those things, the colors and the fonts and all those things, and then how that ladders down to the website and the social media, communications, videos, and all those things. So that's kind of the whole hierarchy and picture of that brand strategy.
Yeah. So to everybody listening, if you want to rewind maybe about a minute and play it on like half speed, you can make a note. And these are like the things that you need to do or keep in mind as you're working through your brand, whether you're going to do it yourself, you're going to hire an expert like Howard or my agency, whoever it is, that okay, these are the things that you actually really do need to consider. It's not just the logo. It's not just the name. It's everything kind of combined, plus your history, presuming that you've been around for, I don't know, at least 3-4 years, that you've had some kind of impact in the community, right? Your history, your legacy is really part of the brand as well, right? So what have you done, good or bad, right? And how can you move forward from that?
Yeah, a lot of organizations are really interested in maintaining their history. Hopefully there's a good founding story, that you want to hold on to. But I want to tell you something that I think is kind of interesting. It's in some way a framework for seeing the world. It's kind of like personality types for people and for organizations. And nonprofits may see themselves in this. I think it's called a KAI index. I could be mistaken about that. But on one side are adapters and one side are innovators. It's not good or bad. It's just a framework for seeing the world. On the adapter side is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Kind of maintain the status quo. And people in this particular sectors are kind of acclimated toward that. For example, lawyers, because you look to the precedent in the law. And we find that a lot of nonprofits are oriented toward that way, the maintaining status quo, making incremental improvements. And the other side is the innovators, and you think of tech companies like disruption. Let's throw out the system, right? Let's break things, So I think when, nonprofits look at how they are, how do you characterize your organization and how do you characterize the people who are making the decisions? How do they see the world? So when you're talking about brand strategy or redevelopment, and we find a lot of them are toward the adapter mindset of let's make incremental changes. And I don't think we realized that for a long time. And it shed light on ways of interacting with the clients. And I think for the clients, it's like a useful tool to understand where they are in terms of how they make decisions and how they get consensus. Because if you have a leader that says, let's charge ahead, let's throw out the old name and the history that we're talking about, we need to reach donors for tomorrow, and everyone else is kind of in the adapter mode, or the cultural disposition of the organization is there, they're going to have a hard time bringing everyone along. And conversely, someone who doesn't have authority, who's trying to make the change, but the whole organization is kind of in this adapter mode, then they're not going to have a lot of progress, there. So you have to understand where the organization is and who the people are in it and what system so that you could actually get everyone on board at the same time.
Yeah, there's a couple kind of examples that I've got from our history here. There's one organization wanted to change or supposedly wanted to change. They had a new executive director. It was like, all right, new branding, new era. Cool. We did branding. We got it all sorted. They did signage and whatever with the logo and all of that. New website, new fresh, clear, crisp, modern design for them. That director left and the new executive director was like, why were these changes made? Well, the previous director gave us these imperatives. We had a committee. We brought together people. We did interviews. We consulted. We came up with this. This is the rationale, the artistic, the this, that, whatever behind meaning of why we did what we did. And what did they do? Take a wild guess, Howard. They went back. They
Yeah.
went back to the old logo. They went back to a design for their website that looks like it's probably about 10, 15 years old. What can we do? There's resistance to change and, we tried it. It didn't work. Okay. It's unfortunate because there was a lot of time and effort that did go into it and all of that. And we did consult with them and we did all the right steps that we should have, but the new director had a different opinion. And so at the end of the day, that's kind of where things came to is there was comfort level there that I guess maybe was missed once it was changed, right? Maybe there was some change in sentiment or things like that. We never really got a clear answer why, other than we're just doing this.
Right. I'll say in my 30 years, that has happened. We've gone through a process and it hasn't been fully adopted, or part of it has been, or part of it has been overruled. We did work, it was probably 10 years ago. It was a huge national organization, did a whole website rebrand, rewrote hundreds of pages of content. I mean, it's a huge thing. And then they fired the executive director and they just scrapped it and did something else. It's like flabbergasted how you do that. I think there were political turf wars there. I mean, there's a lot of nuances into what goes into these things, but building consensus along the way, is really important so that those things don't happen. But it sounds like you did, and in cases where we did also, the things, sometimes new leaders have their own ideas and it's not much you could do to overcome those things. But it does go to try to mitigate those things in terms of having a clear process that everyone buys into and says, look, if we're going to get research and we're going to find out XYZ, then we're going to adhere to what XYZ says. Otherwise, why are we going through that whole process to begin with?
Exactly. And I think part of it, so there's the branding part, but there's also the communications side of stuff and making sure that we've got clear strategy around communications for engaging different types of audiences. I don't think there's really many organizations that have a single audience, right? I think it's really, really rare to have that. If you look at, forgetting about just nonprofits, but across any major or minor brand, there's always multiple audiences. If you look at restaurants, right, like McDonald's, Burger King, whoever, right, they have different people that they cater to. That's why they have Seniors Day and they have buy a cookie, send a kid to camp day or whatever kind of thing, right? There's different audiences across the board. So what do you see as key elements of having a successful comms plan or engaging different audiences?
And you're totally right. Nonprofits are different than businesses, and McDonald's has consumers. They're all consumers, though. They're all, their main goal is buy our food. With nonprofits, it's more challenging. You have people who are your beneficiaries of your program. You have donors who may be government funders and agencies, maybe foundations, individuals, corporate sponsors. There's a whole range of entities that have different strategies and needs. So the first thing is prioritizing those. And it's important to do that because many times it's not really clear. Who do we really need to reach, and then often creating personas, which are kind of profiles of people that you're looking to reach, to have some demographic information, how old they are, what are their interests, what is their income. And then there's psychographics, which are their values, their world perspectives, how do they see the world, what's going to motivate them. And then how do they see your issue and your organization. And even for regular communications, a community center. It's what do you think our role is? Are you just going to a gym? Are you going to a church or a synagogue for those kind of communal needs? Or do you see us as a hub? So the more you could understand about your audience, then the better you could use the right type of message to hit the button that's going to motivate them to volunteer, participate, donate, whatever it is you want them to do.
So I guess a quick little moment of self-promotion. Anybody that's interested in digging in further on psychographics, check out episode 16 of the podcast. It's all about psychographics and what you need to do when you're thinking about that part of your avatar, persona, whatever you want to call it, your audience. It's really important because then you really clearly understand the emotional need that you need to fulfill for them. And how can you lean on that to get them to take some kind of action with you? And at the end of the day, we need to do storytelling. I think that's probably one of the things that is missing a lot from many brands is how do we tell our stories? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think I think it is. It's really about a moment of transformation that your organization made, and you have to make that clear. I think the biggest problem that I see with nonprofits is what role did your organization play in helping a person or situation to have that transformation and communicate not just the physical, but what was their emotional journey? And I think often that's lost. What was their emotional state before? And then equally so, their emotional state after. Now, what a great burden is lifted from me, the relief. Now I could do things. And I think that's like a critical part of storytelling that should be captured that's often missed.
And if we can leverage storytelling in a way, we can make people do things, right? So if you have a page on your website that is a great story about your organization helps raise money to support a local hospital to buy beds for emergency care. On that page, don't have a call to action that says donate. Have a call to action that's like help buy more beds. Something engaging that's related to the content, and you can help drive people to feel like they need to because you've created that connection with them that, hey, this is an important thing. I can actually contribute and help with this thing that you're trying to already do.
That's exactly right. And I think that's the biggest part is connecting the story with the action. And the other thing is in crafting the story, especially in context of a fundraising pitch, it's acclimating around the donor's needs. Same services, craft message, though, framed in a different way based on the needs and motivations of the audience, and you'll likely have a much better response for your efforts.
So I think this has also something to do with behavioral science, right? What is it that motivates somebody is different than somebody else. It's going to be hard to build a persona for everybody that's your audience. Pick like the top 3 or 4, right? Which is probably going to cover, I'd say maybe 70% or so of who you're really trying to connect with. Don't carve it in stone. Review it kind of like on an annual basis and stuff like that. But other than crafting the message for the persona, are there any other behavioral science techniques that nonprofits could use to boost fundraising?
Yeah. There's dozens of these. So we, said, look, it's really overwhelming for nonprofits to understand how to use these. So we put together a model that uses 6 steps. The first step is understanding your audience. Who's your audience, right? And like I just said, you tell the message very differently if you know who they are. The other is telling the story. What are the stories that you're going to tell? How do you frame it, in a way that's going to resonate? The third is your call to action. So you're asking for money, but you gave a great example. Don't just be general. Ask for the very specific thing that relates to the story or the transformation. So how do you craft those different call to actions? Number 4, I call it determining your delivery. How are you getting that out? Is it in print? Is it digital? Who's telling the story? Number 5 is you have all those components. How do you design it for action? How do you package it in a way that makes people want to open it? Often we just see the name of the organization on the cover of a brochure, and I'm like, you just wasted that opportunity. Why would I want to open that? You didn't give me any compelling reason. There's not a headline. There's not a question. There's not an interesting photo that prompts me. There's not a promise of a benefit or a value. And number 6 is reinforce the relationship. So it's not a one-time transaction, but you're cultivating a relationship that you want to have. Then kind of the cycle starts again. Some of the principles like understanding your audience are self-connection. And nonprofits, I think, don't do that enough. Part of it is they don't have enough data. So the prompt there is to collect data at every interaction. This could be one question. It could be one question on a donation form. And start to build your database so that you understand people. Even if it's like, why you're donating today. I gave because it was the meals, it was the education, and it was the healthcare. All right, great. Now we have 3 ways of talking about the same package of services instead of one email blast to everyone. We can, start to target those things. Another principle in that understanding your audience, so past the self-connection and using any opportunity to connect with people based on something, is to kind of label them, give them a label, a cancer survivor, right? As opposed to just someone else who's grappling, with the issue. And you have an identity now that has an affinity in a relationship with other people who have just gone through, the same experience. So even just a champion of our cause, using the noun as opposed to someone who supports our cause has been shown to be more powerful, in their own communications.
Yeah, I think it's an evolutionary thing, right? There's a feeling of safety, a feeling of community. Not always, but I think kind of generally speaking, right? I think that's definitely part of that. So these are things that you should be thinking about, right? As you're putting together your branding, your package, all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about the opposite side. Are there any mistakes that nonprofits should avoid in their marketing, communications, fundraising efforts?
Well, the first is, I think, just coming from the perspective of we, the organization, and not from your audience. So just speaking out at your audience. I think that's like the biggest thing, that I see. Why are you sending out the emails? Like, we got tons of things to say to people. Well, that's great. But one, do they want to hear it? And number two, what do you want them to do about it? I have this actually think, feel, do model. Think, feel, and do. What do you want them to think about your organization? Do you want them to think that you're an authoritative resource about the field? Do you want them to think that you're strong advocates? What do you actually want them to think when they get this thing? And then what do you want them to feel? I mean, do you want them to feel like outraged? A lot of political stuff just is like trying to push outrage. I want them to feel, curious. I want to know more about that. Wow, that's fascinating. And then finally, what do you want them to do? Is it to donate? Is it to register for an event? Is it to volunteer? Is it to join a committee, be on a board, sign up for the newsletter? And often there are many call to actions, but there may be too many, and they may be undermining the ability for someone to focus. So I'd say biggest mistakes are knowing your intention and use this think, feel, do model, clarifying your priorities, and coming at it from the audience perspective of what do they want to know? What's going to motivate them? You may not have to tell them all the things, or you could put them on the website, or you could put them in other channels, or you can segment and say, certain people, going to want to know about the healthcare, and certain are going to know about the meals, and certain ones are going to know about the education, and we don't really need to tell everyone about all the different things we do all the time. And usually you'll find if you do that, your response rates, will go up.
I love what you mentioned about think, feel, do. I'm totally going to be taking that one back with my team and chatting with them about like how can we leverage think, feel, do in the stuff that we're doing internally and with our clients and kind of pass that along. I think overall this has been an amazing episode having you here, a lot of insights for sure. I hope for all of you that are listening that you've been able to get some really great advice to level up what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, Howard, what do they need to do?
They should go to our website, redroostergroup.com. Find a lot of great information and case studies and resources there. There's a contact form, so you can use that. We do have a free resource that will be useful in light of this. It's this Actionology fundraising card deck that is free for download, and it goes through 15 of these principles, and each principle is allocated, has like 3 cards on it. One is a description of the principle. The second one is actual case studies of nonprofits using that principle, so you can see how it's put into action. And the third card is prompts for you to use this in action. So it's a good resource to have. It's free online, and you can check it out at redroostergroup.com.
Amazing. Thanks again for joining, Howard. It's been great having you here on the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. To everybody listening, if you're interested in the card deck or any of the resources, the book, etc., head over to our podcast page at nonprofitdigitalsuccess.com. Click on this episode for all the details. And until next time, keep on being successful.